The alien vampire offered him eternal life for a cost he didn't expect. There was a moment when Corin Miles thought he'd make it, just a breath before impact. Engines groaning, hulls screaming against the pull of EOS-4's atmosphere. He genuinely believed he could stabilize the yaw vector. There'd been a flicker of hope, a brief triumph as the ship's systems responded, right before the left thruster erupted like a drunken fireworks display and sent him cartwheeling toward the surface like a poorly thrown wrench. Now he lay face down in a puddle of his own blood and coolant, thinking, well, that's going to leave a dent. Something hissed behind him, not the deadly sort of hiss, more like a passive-aggressive release of steam, as if the wreckage were judging him for the landing. He groaned, rolling onto his back. The sky above was a swirling bruise of violet, and rust-red clouds lit by the sluggish pulses of the dying gas giant EOS-4 orbited. Pretty, if you liked apocalyptic sunsets and the faint smell of fried circuitry. "Status report," Corin muttered, tapping the side of his helmet. The HUD flickered to life, and then immediately began listing every possible way he was screwed. Life support 3%, internal injuries probable, external signal none. Fortune cookie, you will meet a strange and possibly hostile entity. He chuckled, hoarsely, spitting red. Ha! Nailed it. Dragging himself upright took the strength of a man who really hated dying alone. Each step from the wreckage felt like trekking through molasses wearing a suit made of regrets. His boots crunched over, shards of carbon fiber and twisted metal. EOS-4's air was technically breathable, if you enjoyed the flavor of oxidized minerals and a light dash of slow death. He'd landed near a canyon ridge, jagged and yawning into mist. Beyond it, barren rocks stretched to the horizon, dotted with crystalline formations that glowed faintly like nightlights for a planet with abandonment issues. Corin checked his beacon. Still dead, probably fused by the crash, or just sulking. No comms, no rescue. Unless some passing interstellar charity found him, he was done. Something shifted in the mist. He froze. It wasn't much, just a shadow moving where there shouldn't be one. Then again, his brain might have finally flipped to full hallucination mode. It wouldn't be the first time. During one long drift in deep space, he'd talked to a hallucinated version of his elementary school math teacher for 3 days. She'd been shockingly good company. "Hello?" His voice echoed off the canyon, swallowed by the heavy air. "If you're here to harvest my organs, I'm afraid they're slightly pre-damaged." The shadow moved again, closer this time. It stepped from the fog with unsettling grace, the mist clinging to it like it had been born from it. Corin's grip tightened around the fragment of pipe he'd picked up as a makeshift weapon. It was bent, mildly radioactive, and inspired exactly 0 confidence. Then she appeared, pale skin that shimmered faintly like nacre under the planet's dying light. Hair blacker than the sky above, falling in sleek waves over her shoulders. Her eyes glowed faintly, not in the terrifying demon way, but more like alien headlights set to gentle. Her most striking feature, though, were her ears. Long, pointed, elegant, like something out of an old Earth fantasy archive. Corin blinked. "Okay," he croaked. "Either I'm very dead, or I've crash-landed in a particularly high-budget fever dream." The woman tilted her head, her voice like water over stone. "You are not dead yet." "Ah, good," he rasped. "I'd hate to start my afterlife covered in engine coolant." She walked toward him, no footprints, no sound. Her eyes scanned him, not cruelly but clinically. "You are broken," Corin barked a weak laugh. "Yeah, well, aren't we all?" She crouched beside him, placing a hand over his chest. Warmth radiated from her palm, sinking into his bones. He shivered. Pain faded slightly, dulled by something not quite explainable. What are you?" he managed. "I am Sale," she said simply, "and you are dying." "Well, Sale," he coughed. "Not to criticize your social skills, but that's a hell of an opener." Her Mouth twitched, maybe a smile. I can save you, but you must choose. Live or end. Not big on subtlety, are you? Her hand lifted. She reached into a pouch at her side and withdrew a vial. The liquid inside shimmered like starlight melted down and bottled. What is it? He asked, trying and failing to sit up. My blood. Let me guess. With it I gain great power, but also a price. She nodded. You would live forever. You would become other, part of me, part of my kind. She looked to the sky. We are Nitharari, once rulers of this spiral, now survivors. My kind are few. I cannot live long on this world alone, but with a bond, you stay anchored. Anchored, he finished. She looked down at him. Exactly, Corin groaned. You know, I always hoped immortality would be offered to me by some eccentric billionaire with a bad goatee, not a mysterious elf-vampire alien woman. I am not a vampire. You offered me your blood, a practical solution, not a gothic horror. He wheezed out a laugh. If I say no, you die soon, quietly. Great. Love binary options. Sale held the vial out. The starlight inside pulsed once, as if alive. Corin stared at it. His body screamed. Every nerve felt like fire, and ice took turns slapping him, but his mind still worked, still calculated odds. I should really read the fine print, he muttered. You don't happen to have a pamphlet? So you've been offered immortality by a space elf, only the real thing, she said, offering the vial again, and somehow, despite everything, he reached for it. Chapter 2. The transformation. The taste was awful. Corin gagged as the shimmering liquid hit his tongue. It wasn't metallic as he'd expected, but sweet, cloying, syrupy. Like someone had taken cotton candy, infused it with starlight, then let it rot for a millennium in a dying sun. His throat burned as it slid down, a slow, thick heat blooming. Outward from his gut, every nerve screamed, then went mercifully numb. His vision warped, the world tilted, cracked into fractal pieces, and reassembled itself in upside-down logic. The ground breathed. The sky laughed. Sale leaned over him, her eyes distant and unreadable, as though she was watching him from 3 dimensions away. Side effects may include nausea, existential dread, and temporary hallucinations, he mumbled, then blacked out. When he woke, it was in a place that should not have existed. The walls pulsed gently, a soft bioluminescent glow moving along fibrous veins and patterns that reminded him of star charts. He lay on something warm and pliable, like a bed made of memory foam and curious jellyfish. His jacket was gone, his boots neatly set beside the organic platform he rested on. A faint hum thrummed through the air, a tone just on the edge of hearing, like a lullaby hummed by the ship's nervous system. A figure moved at the edge of his vision. You survived, Sale said simply, her voice low, calm, and aggravatingly unbothered. Well, it was that, or die covered in space dirt, Corin croaked. Not exactly a tough call. She walked closer, and the light shifted around her, bending slightly as if the room itself respected her presence. Her long ears twitched suddenly when she looked at him, an involuntary movement like an animal assessing a new sound. Where is this? Your spaceship. This is Miharun, she said. A place grown, not built. The Nitharari construct shelters from living organisms, symbiotic biospheres. It adjusts itself to our needs. It is not sentient, but it is aware. Right. So, I'm living inside a very polite space mushroom. It is more like coral, but if metaphor helps you cope, then yes. A polite mushroom. He swung his legs over the side of the platform and immediately regretted it. The floor squelched underfoot, warm, slightly damp, not unpleasant, just weird. The room responded to his movement. A small column rose from the floor beside him, offering a smooth panel that blinked slowly. What's that? Coffee machine? Please, tell me it's a coffee machine. It is a neural interface, Sale said. It synchronizes with your pattern. You can communicate with me, though only in basic terms. Do not ask it to make coffee. It might try. Oh, God. The last time I drank alien coffee, I couldn't blink for 16 hours. Sounds like a poorly designed beverage. Or a brilliant one, depends on how fast you need to file taxes. He pressed a hand against the panel, and the interface pulsed. Under his skin, a shiver ran up his spine. For a second, his mind brushed against something vast and soft. Not intelligent exactly, but curious. Miharun responded to him like a dog nudging a new toy, unsure if it should play or analyze. "You are adapting quickly," Sale said, folding her arms. Her expression, as always, hovered somewhere between impressed and mildly irritated. "I've always been good at making myself at home in impossible situations," Corin said. "I once had to sleep inside a faulty cryopod with a very territorial octopus, still not sure if we broke up or just stopped speaking." She blinked slowly. "Your species' survival instinct seems heavily reliant on absurdity." "It's a coping mechanism," he replied. "Standing fully, like laughing at your own funeral or flirting with your executioner." "I am not executing you." Could have fooled me. That drink nearly turned my stomach inside out and launched it into orbit. She gave him what might have been a smile. It didn't quite reach her eyes. Corin walked with her through the living corridors of Miharun. The structure shifted subtly ahead of them, walls parting, lights dimming or brightening as they approached. At one point, the corridor widened into a vast chamber where the floor formed a shallow pool, reflecting images from above. Stars, constellations, shapes that danced and morphed as if alive. "Nitharari navigation," Sale explained. "We travel through resonance mapping. Space is not a void, it is a structure. We learn its music. You navigate space by vibes, by patterns of vibrational memory embedded in sub-quantum filaments. But, yes, vibes. They reached a chamber at the heart of Miharun. Here, crystalline structures jutted from the floor and ceiling, humming faintly. In the center stood a platform with a pulsating sphere above it, hovering in defiance of gravity. "This is the anchor chamber," she said. "It monitors your bond." "My what now?" "Your body is changing. Slowly. The I-core is rewriting your cellular blueprint, not just DNA, deeper resonance layers. You are becoming attuned." He approached the sphere cautiously. As he drew near, it pulsed brighter. "I feel like it's judging me." "It is only measuring the bond." Corin reached out. A jolt snapped through his fingers. For a split second, he saw something that wasn't there. Sale, standing on the surface of a shattered moon, eyes aglow, hands dripping with light that bled into the ground. The vision vanished. "You said this wouldn't come without consequences," he said, pulling his hand back. "The bond is not control," she said, "but connection. We share memory, not always voluntarily. So no more secrets? Only those buried deeply enough." Corin exhaled, sitting on the edge of the platform. "Let me guess. The next phase involves me growing fangs and suddenly developing a taste for blood." "We do not consume blood. We consume energy signatures. Blood is simply a convenient carrier." Semantics. "I just hope my toothbrush still works." Sale looked at him quietly for a long time. Then softly she said, "You are adapting faster than I expected." "I've been adapting since I was 5, he replied. "First to a drunk father, then to a broken ship, then to every job that nearly killed me. At this point, this—" He gestured to the living ship, his glowing veins, the hovering orb. "This just feels like the logical next step." She turned to leave, her voice trailing behind her. "We shall see if your logic holds when the bond deepens." Alone, Corin stared at the orb, feeling its hum inside his chest. He was still dying in a way, just not the kind he was used to. He was dying into something else, something he didn't yet understand. And honestly, for once, he wasn't entirely sure if that terrified him or thrilled him. Chapter 4. Breathless. The first thing Corin noticed when he woke up was that he wasn't breathing. Not in the traditional way, at least. His chest wasn't rising or falling, no air in, no air out, yet he felt no panic, no suffocation, just a strange stillness, like his lungs had been laid off, but nobody told the rest of his body. "Well," he muttered, "guess breathing's out this season." Miharun responded by adjusting the ambient temperature as if trying to be helpful, or maybe just trying to keep him from overheating while he processed whatever internal weirdness had just taken place. He rolled off the sleeping platform. He'd stopped calling it a bed once it shifted shape mid-nap, and stood upright, waiting to see if anything else felt off. His limbs ached less. His mind felt clearer, and his skin hummed, not audibly, but on a level just beneath perception, like he was vibrating slightly out of sync with the room around him. When he looked into the reflective surface of the wall panel, he expected dramatic changes, glowing eyes, fangs, some sharp, overdone transformations straight from a horror database. Instead, he just looked like himself. A little paler, sure, hair more unruly, eyes faintly luminous if you squinted at a weird angle, but mostly still Corin. Slightly enhanced, slightly unsettled Corin. He found Sale in what he'd come to call the observatory, though she insisted it was a memory chamber. Floating displays of Nitharari star maps curled through the space like glowing jellyfish, forming and unforming constellations as she waved her hand through them. She didn't look. "Up you are adjusting to being a glowy immortal space wizard." "Yeah, you know, slowly, with grace and quiet panic. You're no wizard." "Oh, thank you for that. Really helps my confidence." She turned, finally, meeting his gaze. "You are no longer entirely human. Your metabolic systems are dormant. Your neural activity has synchronized with the bond matrix. If you had remained planetside, the changes would have destabilized your body. Here, Miharun buffers the transformation. So, you brought me aboard your sentient houseplant so I wouldn't explode." "Essentially," he rubbed the back of his neck. "Great, love being a science experiment. You volunteered, did I? You showed up in a cloud of mist and offered me glitter juice. That's not exactly informed consent." Her ears twitched. He was starting to figure out that was the Nitharari version of rolling your eyes. "We are approaching the edge of the echo belt," she said, changing the subject with the elegance of a diplomat. "We will be passing through a gravitational anomaly soon. The journey may disorient you." "How disorienting are we talking? Like space turbulence, or I forget my own name and try to marry a toaster, disorienting?" "Closer to the latter." "Right. I'll pack a tux." He followed her to the bridge, not that the ship had anything like a traditional command center. The bridge was more of a large circular space, surrounded by organic nodes and floating crystals, each pulsing with soft light. Sale took her place at a central platform that rose up from the floor like a throne for someone who didn't believe in chairs. The ship shifted into motion again, and Corin felt it less as physical movement, more as a pressure in his bones, like gravity had suddenly become sentient and was sizing him up for a dance. "Miharun's core systems are engaging fold threshold," Sale said. "Do not resist the dislocation. Don't resist the dislocation." "That's comforting." Then the stars broke. It wasn't a jump to light speed or warp or anything that matched the old ship lore he knew. It was more like peeling. The universe around them seemed to unfold like pages of a book caught in a windstorm. Layers of reality slid away, revealing strange geometries underneath. Corin felt as if he'd been flattened, turned sideways, and then poured through an equation that didn't like being solved. He floated or sank, possibly both, and in that surreal moment, a voice echoed in his mind. Not Sale's, not Miharun's. It was his own, but older, deeper, like it had lived too long in too many timelines. We are the resonance. We are the memory. We are the price. Then it was over. He gasped, finally breathing again, and collapsed against the platform railing. "Okay," he wheezed. "That was a solid 10 on the list of things I never want to do again, unless extremely bribed." "You handled it better than most," Sale said, her tone unreadable. "Most what?" "Most initiates. Those who form the bond often do not survive their first fold." "Wait, what?" He staggered to his feet, eyes wide. "That is not the part you lead with, Sale. That's a footnote. A footnote you mention after I'm too far into the process to back out." "You cannot back out," she said mildly. "I am aware." They stood in silence for a moment, both watching the recalibrating starfields ahead of them. The echo belt shimmered like a curtain of diamond dust, full of half-born stars and fractured gravity wells. Corin finally asked, "So what now? Do I get a cape? An instruction manual? Some kind of alien immortality orientation slideshow?" "We are en route to the artifact fields of Liston," she said. "There is something I must retrieve, and you must begin learning what it means to carry." "Nitharari resonance? Cool. And how exactly do I do that?" "You listen," she said. She turned to him. "To what?" "Everything." Later, in his own chamber, Corin lay on the platform and tried to follow that advice. He let Miharun's hum settle over him, let the silence stretch. Somewhere in the ship's structure, energy flowed, not like power, but like blood. The more he listened, the more he heard, pulses, whispers, half-formed memories flickering at the edges of perception. One memory came unbidden. Not his. A battlefield, stars falling like rain. Sale, younger, standing amid the ruins of a Nitharari enclave, holding a child that flickered in and out of phase. Her eyes were hard, her body wounded. Her voice, when she spoke to the child, trembled with something he couldn't name. Then the vision faded. He sat up, shaking. The bond wasn't just showing him her past, it was offering it to him. "Well," he muttered to the ceiling, "I've had roommates before, but psychic memory sharing, that's new." Miharun pulsed softly, like it was laughing, or hiccuping. "Great," Corin said. "Even the walls have a sense of humor." And for once, he didn't feel entirely alone. Corin sat cross-legged in the middle of a chamber that smelled vaguely like cinnamon and static electricity, watching a floating sphere of bioluminescent goo try to spell his name. It was failing spectacularly. So far, it had managed to form Korf and then Khan before it gave up and displayed an angry squiggle that he assumed was a curse word in blob. "I'm beginning to think this thing doesn't like me," he said. Sale didn't look up from the crystalline console embedded in the wall. "It does not dislike you. It simply does not understand you." "Great. We're off to a fantastic start. Maybe I should take it to dinner and talk about our feelings. It lacks a digestive system. I can relate." She finally turned to face him, her long ears twitching faintly as she approached. "This is the symbiotic mnemonic interface. It extracts pattern thought and converts it into navigable structure. It is not sentient, but it learns as you must." He looked back at the jelly sphere, which now floated sulkily in the air, rippling in shades of blue and green. "So what? This is like my training buddy, my mentor Blob. It will help you shape your resonance. You are still unbalanced." "Yeah, well, my ex said the same thing, but with fewer floating bioluminescent blobs." She sighed. A sound so elegant and weary, it could have been bottled and sold as intergalactic disappointment number 5. "Focus, Corin. The bond must stabilize if you are to survive what comes next." "And what does come next, exactly?" he asked, voice quieter now. "You keep dropping ominous warnings like breadcrumbs, but I've yet to see the gingerbread house. Is it full of space witches?" Sale studied him for a long moment before speaking. "There is something in the artifact fields of Liston, A relic from the time before the Nithharari exodus. It may contain answers. Answers to what? To why our kind first made the pact, why the price of immortality was ever necessary. Corin blinked. Wait, you mean you don't know? No. Nithharari remembers the original cause. It has been buried intentionally, records purged, memories sealed. It is not our way to forget, which means it was done with purpose. Let me guess, by someone with really pointy ears and a fondness for secrets. She gave him a look that could have melted steel. By the elders, before they vanished. Well, Corin said, getting to his feet. Sounds like a delightful road trip. We just need snacks and a mixtape. Pack your wit if it comforts you. It will not help you where we're going. Still bringing it, he muttered, patting his jacket. They entered the forward reach of Listun hours later. The view from Miharun's observation deck was like staring into a shattered mirror. 1,000 fragmented moons drifted through the void, some rotating backward, others flickering in and out of phase like faulty holograms. Each fragment hummed with energy, resonance echoes, Sale explained, ghosts of things that no longer existed but hadn't realized it yet. You ever wonder, Corin said, gazing out, if space just wakes up one day and decides to mess with you? Like, what if the universe is sentient and all this nonsense is its idea of a practical joke? Your species enjoys anthropomorphizing everything. I mean, we name hurricanes. Of course we do. They guided Miharun toward one of the larger fragments, a jagged half-moon spiraling slowly on its own axis. As the ship drew near, Corin felt it again. The pulse, a low, steady thrum in his bones that wasn't sound so much as memory trying to become real. The closer they got, the more the bond stirred. I know this place, he whispered. You cannot, Sale said. I do. Not in my head, in the in-between. He touched his chest. Something here is calling. Not words, just need. Sale narrowed her eyes. Then it has already begun, the deeper resonance. They disembarked onto the fragment's surface, protected by Miharun's biosphere. The terrain was jagged, metallic, and littered with crystalline growths that hummed softly. It felt ancient and wrong, like a museum designed by a god with no sense of scale. Corin stepped carefully, his boots clinking against the surface. This place gives me the creeps. That is because the memories here are fractured, Sale said. The relic distorts the echo. He was about to reply when a sudden flash erupted from the ground. Light twisted into a vortex, forming a shape that wasn't quite real. A humanoid figure emerged, tall and robed, with no face beneath its hood, just shifting darkness. Corin instinctively stepped back. Oh, good. A haunted cloak. That's not terrifying at all. Sale remained still. It's a guardian echo, a remnant left to defend the relic. The figure raised one hand. No words, no movement. But Corin felt it. A pressure in his skull, like a question, without language. It's asking for access, Sale said, but it will only open to one who carries the bond. Corin stared at the thing. So I have to what? Handshake the ghost? Reach toward it. He did. The moment his fingers brushed the air near the figure, the bond surged. A flash overtook his vision. Sale's memories, the ship, the first transformation, but layered with something else. A woman, human maybe, laughing, reaching, then screaming. He gasped and fell to one knee. The echo vanished. The ground split open, revealing a chamber below. Well, Corin said between breaths, that wasn't dramatic at all. Sale helped him up. It knows you now. Terrific. I've always wanted to be on first-name terms with a psychic lock. They descended into the chamber. It was quiet, too quiet, not in the way of silence but in the way of absence. Even Miharun's hum faded. At the chamber's center sat a pedestal of bone-white stone, and atop it a crystal, black veined with pulsing red lines, shaped like a jagged teardrop. Corin stepped forward. The bond hummed. Sale's hand shot out. "Wait," he paused. "This may change you. I'm already changing, not physically. Everything." He looked at the crystal. It looked back. No eyes, no features, but it saw. And he knew, without knowing how, that if he touched it, he would remember things that never belonged to him. He touched it, and the stars screamed, not aloud, but through him. Memories flooded him. War, love, betrayal, the moment the first Nithharari drank from the well of resonance, and became more than mortal, the cost, the exile, the pact with the void creature that offered eternity and demanded silence in return, then darkness, and Corin gasping, still himself, but not entirely, not anymore. Chapter 10. Awakening the Elders. Corin spent the next several hours, possibly days, maybe weeks. Time was deeply suspicious here, sitting in the center of the relic chamber, trying to piece together what had just happened without accidentally setting himself or the universe on fire. The crystal was dark now, dormant, like it had given up all it had to give, and decided to take a nap the size of a millennium. He knew exactly how it felt. Sale had said almost nothing since he regained consciousness. She stood a few steps away, watching him like a particularly complex math problem that might explode if solved incorrectly. "So," he said finally, rubbing his temples, "that was a lot." "You absorbed the root memory," she said. "That was unexpected." "Yeah, well, I aim to surprise. Also, I think my brain has been replaced by a neutron star filled with flashbacks. Every time I blink, I see ancient vampires doing space yoga."